There were two big new developments today in the campaign that's been most marked. First, by the utter deceit of Labor, and the second by a general avoidance of all the big issues facing Australia. In the final debate on Sunday, Anthony Albanese was grilled about the failed voice and whether he'd try to bring it back if re-elected. Remember, these were the first words on his lips on election night last time.
On behalf of the Australian Labor Party, I commit to the Uluru Statement from the Heart in full.
There he was, completely committed to the full Uluru Indigenous separatist agenda, voice, treaty and truth. Yet on Sunday, under pressure, there was a fair bit of stalling, but eventually it was extracted out of him that the failed voice was, he says, gone.
Do you still believe in it?
Under the former government, it's gone.
No, man, what's your personal view?
Well,
because
it was not
Prime Minister,
successful.
You still believe, Prime Minister. I mean, people want to know this. You still believe in what the voice was trying to achieve. It's just the name that you've abandoned. You'll still try and get the objectives.
No, that process was not successful.
Until today, the government's Senate leader, the most powerful player in Labor bar none, Penny Wong, saying that the voice was coming back and one day would be as unquestioned and as taken for granted as gay marriage, despite being rejected 60-40 in that referendum just 18 months ago. Here was Wong in a podcast that was released on Monday.
Look, I think we'll look back on it in 10 years' time and it'll be a bit like marriage equality, don't you reckon? Like I always used to say, marriage equality, which took us such a bloody fight to get that done. And I thought, all this fuss, it'll become something. It'll be like people go, do we have an argument about that? They won't even like it. Kids today or even adults today barely kind of clock that it used to be an issue.
So the Foreign Minister, supremely confident that the voice just won't have come about within the decade, but will be all but universally accepted, even though it's just been resoundingly rejected, as I said, by the majority of Australians, including in every single state. So what is the government's plan here? Well, here's the PM trying to dig himself out of the hole earlier today. Asked on ABC Radio whether his senior colleague had said an Indigenous voice to Parliament was inevitable, the Prime Minister implausibly denied that's what she said, even though that's absolutely what she meant. Here he is.
Is Penny Wong right? Is the voice sort of inevitable?
Well, she didn't say that at all. So
that's what she's implied. That's the heavy implication, isn't it?
You just played it. People will, I think it was a very modest proposal, but it didn't receive the support of the Australian people. And that is what Penny Wong is saying. During that campaign, we were told that it would determine where Australia's defence bases would be. It would make a difference to people's private property rights. It would do extraordinary things. None of that was the case. It was an advisory committee that was non-binding about matters that affect Indigenous Australians. It wasn't successful.
But it's a serious question, PM. I do think the implication there is that it's inevitable, whether or not...
No, but she didn't say that, Raf. She did not say that. She spoke about how people will look back on what the issues were. That's very different from saying it's inevitable. She did not say that at all. And Penny Wong is, in fact, from a state in South Australia, which you'd be aware does have a voice to Parliament, that has elected representatives that is in place.
Semantic gymnastics from the Prime Minister. And we hear this so often from that liar in the lodge, saying one thing yet doing another. He cannot be trusted. Now Penny Wong is one of the most political people in Australian public life. Nothing she does is by accident. Nothing she says is an accident. So here's what all of this was about. Wong's comment about the voice, that it's coming back, that it'll happen, is to lock in Labor's base, try and claw back some of those younger voters in particular who have drifted off to the Greens. Second, and this is why she's pushing it out now in the dying days of this campaign, late enough Labor hopes that it won't get picked up too widely in the media, but in sufficient time that should they win, they can then claim it as some sort of mandate. Well, we told you about it before the election. That's what they'll say. Now, I would also argue that in the deal Labor's done already with the Greens on preferences, a legislated voice is already on the table. It is front and centre of that preference deal. See why I say this election matters more than any other I can recall in my lifetime. To bring back the voice is to trash the democratic decision you took 18 months ago to reject this divisive, race-based change to our Constitution. So every Australian who voted no needs to send the PM a message in terms he can't help but understand. And that message is to throw him out of office on his ear. Because you've heard me say this before, fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me.